Okay, now we're on the stage.
Okay. Hello, welcome everybody. Thank you so much for joining us. My name is Louise Harris and I am a Chief of Staff at the UK Government Digital Service. It's my great pleasure today to be your moderator for this panel session talking about making innovation happen, transformation insights from government digital leaders. What a topic. What a wonderful bunch of leaders we've got here today. I'm really pleased to say that we're joined on the stage by Richard Puttick from Defence Support. He is our Chief Information Officer. Hi, Richard. John Laverick, Chief Digital Information Officer from HMCTS. So for those in the know, that is the Courts and Tribunal Service here in the UK. A very familiar face in Leanne Cummings, who is Director of Products and Services and a colleague of mine from the Government Digital Service. And last but by no means least, Christina Hammond-Aziz, current CEO of Rainmaker, but a former member of the Senior Civil Service here in the UK and a Chief Digital Officer. So wonderful to have you all with us. I think we've got the ingredients for a really good 50 minutes together. We've got a chunky topic. We've got a wonderful panel of experts, but most importantly, we've also got all of you. So you've all chosen to be here, to turn up, to think about how we can make innovation happen in governments, not just in the UK, but across the world. I'm going to want to bring you all in as much as possible towards the end. So as we go through, just think about the questions that you want to be putting to our panel, and then I'll make sure that there's good time for that towards the end. So if that sounds good, we'll make a start. And I think I'll frame this by saying that unblocking the ability to innovate at pace and at scale is something that is only going to become more important to governments around the world as we think about how we deal with the complexity and volume of challenges in this ever-increasing global context. Here in the UK, our Prime Minister announced a plan for change last December, setting out a series of very ambitious milestones and missions that they want us to deliver in the course of the next Parliament. And for those of you who've been following your BBC News apps, you'll see hot off the presses, our Chancellor has just finished delivering the Spring Statement, where again, we're being asked to think about how we reform the state and do more on behalf of our users. So, innovation is only going to get more important, and I think it's time we hear from our panel about it. Richard, I'll come to you first for your insight into how in defence you are using technology to drive the kind of transformation that's needed to meet this increasing level of ambition.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to pick up on a couple of the words that you used there, pace and scale, and give a couple of examples also of what I think is good practice. And this, I should say, is not innovation necessarily I'm driving myself, but good examples of innovation that I've seen adjacent to me. And there are good reasons why I'll emphasize that point. So the first is we've recently selected a big piece of software to do data exploitation, data mining. And it's very significantly sized, requires a lot of skill and dedicated resource to use it. One of the senior engineers in the Royal Navy has picked this up and run with it in a very important way. She has sponsored a large number of people, hundreds of my colleagues, to go through a boot camp to learn about how the product works and to enable individuals to deliver their insights within it. And that matters, reaching all the way back to what Sarah Mumby was talking about in the first session yesterday morning, about how we need to be using and upskilling our own staff rather than relying on external resources to deliver. And out of those hundreds of people who've been through that educational boot camp, only a few, some tens, have really grasped the tool and started using it. But what those 10 people have delivered has been really valuable. So you can't predict where innovation is going to happen. You've just got to lay the groundwork so that people can realize it themselves. And it's the people who are closest to the problems who drive the innovation, in my perception. Now, as CIO, I have contributed to this. But the way I've contributed is by providing the data platform, effectively the foundation on which they can work. Another example involves one of the partners who's out in the hall at the moment. We've been using them with a small team in another part of the defence forest. Defence is quite a complicated organisation. To deliver a small team who are providing innovation services across a wide range of units in defence. And they started off very small, just working with robotic process automation, basic tooling that's been around for tens of years now. And they've moved up from using that into data engineering, into process engineering, and now into AI. The important message is they had a central grouping of skills, small team, but a knowledgeable team dedicated towards innovation. And instead of me spinning off a separate group of people to do innovation in my part of the forest, and similarly other people doing innovation in their part, we've actually focused on using resources elsewhere in the department effectively. Again, they're using my data, and actually they're addressing some of my problems, which is even better. And that's the fragmentation piece. So instead of fragmenting off your own innovation, if you can piggyback on somebody else's, absolutely all the better. And you'll learn and gain more through that. So don't fragment and build the skills.
Thanks, Richard. At GDS, sometimes we talk about teams acting like magpies. So you don't always need to be the person that's building the shiny stuff. You can look over there and go, yes, we'll have it. So it's a great insight. Thank you. John, I'd be interested to hear from you now. I mean, in Her Majesty's Courts and Tribunal Service, you've got a very complex estate. You've got thousands, millions of users potentially. How are you thinking about the opportunity to innovate and to transform?
Thanks, Louise. So we've just coming to the end of an 8-year transformation program in HMCTS, where we've taken it from very much a paper-based organisation, very physically based. When you think of the courts, you think about going to court, to a digital organisation. Many of the services now we can use end-to-end in a digital way, and we've kind of really moved from operations being physical to operations being digital. That's been quite a long journey and a difficult journey, I think it'd be fair to say. And we're now using technology to iron out some of those issues. So we're using AI, we're using low code, using RPA, much more to sort of iron out and make efficiencies to what we decided we were going to do 8 years ago. The other thing I'd just guard against a little bit is the question about how does technology deliver transformation? Because one of the real mistakes we made in our reform program was treating it as a technology program. And it wasn't a technology program, it was a business transformation program. And to my mind, there's very few technology programs. Pretty much everything is business transformation enabled by technology. And we need to be really careful, I think, of falling into that trap when we talk about AI. I'm sure, like everybody here, you'll go to a meeting which is about what can we do with AI, and immediately you're walking in with the wrong viewpoint. You're walking in with how can we chase the shiny rather than how can we address a business issue.
Thanks, John. 8 years, my goodness. You've been in the trenches. And I just want to reflect like how wonderful it is to be sat on a panel today where we're hearing words like mistakes, traps. We're being really honest about some of the challenges of this work, and I think it's a really important part of the conversation, so thank you. Leanne, I'm going to come to you now, if I may.
Amazing.
I'm going to switch gears. we've heard from some of our colleagues in departments about what they're doing and how they're approaching this. We represent the sort of digital centre. We've got a slightly different flavour on things. So what innovations are GDS working on, and how are you sharing what you're learning with departments to drive change?
Amazing. Thanks, Lou. And thanks, everyone. There's loads of familiarity here, which is fabulous. One quick thing. I love this question, making innovation happen. But that makes innovation sound a bit like an event, like making a conference happen or like making a cake happen. And I think that we are all likely in spaces where you probably don't have all the budget in the world, all the people in the world. You have 5 million priorities, all of which are equally important. So I think we are probably innovating every day because we have to. So just to have said, innovation is not an event, it's a thing that we do. I'm going to break some hearts now, though, because the innovation I'm going to talk about, sort of sadly, but yay, is an AI-based innovation. And gov.uk Chat is a ChatGPT-inspired tool that enables citizens to ask very complicated questions in their own language and get great answers. The reason I'm going to talk about that twofold: A, we can talk about the robots earlier, and they like us when we do that, but B, that innovation happened built on a foundation of work that was already engaging with data science, with large language models, sort of behind the scenes. And yes, we did definitely get in the rockstar moment of this is ChatGPT exploded. That gives us more levers, more tooling, more technology. But this is work that we were already doing. And honestly, we're doing it in GDS, but we can't do that in a silo. This only works, and I'm not on commission, I promise, but like the tool that we built only worked because HMRC leaned in, DWP leaned in, DBT, like all the acronyms, everybody leaned in to help us get that over the line. So a couple of things from me. Not an event and a team sport. And we've mentioned the robots, so.
Good. Okay, thank you, Leanne. Christina, you have spent some years in government, outside of government. You're now leading Rainmaker. You are helping organisations across the public sector to think about how they can tackle these complex challenges using digital transformation. Are you seeing innovation and technology making a real difference in your work?
I think I definitely am, but I'm going to come back to all three of you, if that's okay. So I think when we talk about technology, I love what you said. For me, technology is not an outcome. It's never been an outcome. A technology program is only ever there to deliver, to solve a problem or deliver to a new opportunity. And I think when we, even in the world of AI and ChatGPT, and I'm really pleased, we still need to think about the fact that, fundamentally, we should always go back to basics. So I loved your story on, where innovation happens, the idea of empowering our people to go off and look at technology solutions. I think one of the best stories I ever heard was, do we have anyone from HMRC here? Yeah. So one of the best stories I think I've ever heard is from Daljit Rahal, where he said, back in my former day, I threw a bunch of Raspberry Pis to some of my team, went to go and see what they would do with it, and they created an entirely new P&L line for Centrica because they literally just went away and played. And we don't think about the fact that actually we can bring technologies into our organization, and we would have brought those technologies to be designed against some sort of problem or program that we're running. But actually, when you allow our people to go and play with it and solve problems with it, we actually get innovation, and we get innovation every day rather than innovation as an event, because it's not an event. And also, innovation isn't just about the new and novel. It's about how we manage to do things, better and differently and scale it, and continuously improve or continually evolve. So do I see lots of best practice? I see lots of best practice in lots and lots of parts of government. And like when I was in government for decades, I also see lots of mistakes that we've made and pitfalls that we've fallen into. But I really love the fact that actually for the last 15 years, actually the one thing we do constantly talk about is we're constantly moving, we're constantly trying, we're constantly exploring. And we're willing to stand up on a stage and go, that went wrong.
Yeah, absolutely. So there's momentum. I think let's stay on that and let's go a little bit deeper. Do you have a sense of do we know what good innovation looks like? Like how do we spot it? And when we do, what are we doing to nurture it? Because actually what we're hearing is actually it comes from lots of different places. It might not come from your team. It might not come from a dedicated innovation team. It might not be the bleeding edge stuff. It might be the hard yard stuff. So If you could define it, what does good innovation look like?
I think there are a couple of, I've always got a couple, haven't I? It's always two things to look for. One is the kind of innovation that delivers a PowerPoint deck. Okay? That is the innovation to avoid. Innovation is about outcomes. It's about delivery. And so innovation that is theoretical is not innovation at all. It's invention. And we need to avoid making that mistake. And in the Ministry of Defence, we have made that mistake a number of times and will doubtless continue to do so. One way of avoiding that mistake is focusing on the business value. So I'm absolutely in favour, actually, of technology driving things rather than necessarily waiting for the business to come up with the answer. But the business has to validate what we produce. And it's the business value and costing and counting that actually matters. And I find that highly unpredictable. I don't think you can start off a project or an initiative and know in advance exactly what it's going to deliver. And that means innovation doesn't look like an ordinary project where you've got a project definition at the start and you've got terms of reference and you've got a nice, a timeline with a particular deliverable you've identified, which actually makes it quite difficult to get through our current commercial models, for example. So a good innovation actually also has a lot of failure baked into it, I think. So I'll go back to one of the teams I was talking about at the start. They, in addition to the robotic process automation they were working with, they moved into ChatGPT as soon as it came out. Within a couple of weeks, they had a model of our policy documents. And you could ask questions of our multitudinous policy documents to try and make sense of that. And we proved within less than 24 hours that you could make it hallucinate in very unpleasant ways in terms of what it would tell you those documents contained. That was good failure. That was fast failure. So they took the feedback, and lo and behold, there was another iteration the next week. Still failed somewhat, and another iteration, and so on. That's good failure, and we should recognise and congratulate people for doing that.
Thanks, Richard. John, you talked to us earlier about this 8-year journey that you've been on. Did you start that out with a clear plan? Did someone give you a list of requirements, or did you learn as you go?
Yeah, definitely not a good list of requirements. I think one of the problems we have is, well, if I go back to what good innovation looks like to start with, and I'll come back to that, is good innovation, as Richard said, is agile. It's got to be quick. It's got to be constantly changing. And one of the problems we had is that the whole way that we do programs in government is set up to more of that 8-year type piece. You develop this huge business case, which in our case was incredibly ambitious, transforming the whole court. Realistically, you'd never really do that all of that together, but there we go. A huge business case, and then over those 8 years, you go back to various governance boards, of which there are way too many, and eventually to PAC, and you basically justify why you have deviated from that scope. Our business case 8 years ago had us designing a video hearing solution. Because 8 years ago, there wasn't really a video solution out there. These days, we use video solutions every single day. But to reverse and change your direction is a very, very difficult thing to do. It means questions about why are you changing scope, why are you not delivering. And we need to get to a place where we are much more agile in terms of being able to fail, being able to turn direction, being able to prototype things very quickly. But probably the most important thing is being able to scale things really quickly. I've got to a place now where I've kind of got some seed funding to do some prototyping. That kind of goes under the radar. But then scaling fast off the back of that is very difficult still.
Thanks, John. Christina, I'd like to come to you now. I mean, is this ringing true in terms of the organisations that you are working with? Is it the tech challenge? Is it the funding, the commercial challenge? What's this playing out?
I do. Okay, so at risk of being a little bit challenging, and I think I can now that I'm no longer in the civil service for now. There is something a little bit broken about our cycle of transformation, isn't there? You know, the idea that we will be able to today essentially plan all of these changes that we're going to make over 5 to 8 years based on the world that we know today, no idea of what the world's going to look like. And we've all been there. We've all done it. I've run many transformation programs where I go and do that. I write all the business cases. I go through all the governance. My poor teams go through all the governance that is really out of touch with the way in which we need to be able to continually evolve. And then you get to the end of those 5 years or 8 years, and you've spent a load of money, lots of resources, made mistakes, done some really great things, but what do? You go and recreate a new transformation plan. And the holy grail of transformation is that actually let's get out of that and let's get into that continual state of evolving. And I think that's where, like Leanne, where products and services is like in its like best place, isn't it? You know, where products and services know that we need to constantly evolve and deliver. And I think we're better when it comes to funding products and services and their development than we are often transformation programs, because we still treat transformation programs like they're a program. And that's not always quite the right way.
Great. And we're starting to get into now some of the anti-patterns in government that are really harming innovation. Are we finding ways to overcome them? Leanne, I mean, you and the teams have gone from very rapid prototyping to some private pilots in less than a year. What are the things that are helping to overcome and deliver innovation in spite of the system?
Yeah, I think there's something a bit energizing about the system at times too, that makes you want to do it despite, not because. I think that our approach always is, look, I work with loads of experts, right? They're experts in practice, they're experts in user problems, they're experts in challenges that government has. And our job is to provide a space where they can have an idea and to listen to them when they have that idea. And oftentimes, we don't have time to go for funding. So you're carving out. You work with leaders who will go, OK, then, go at that. And we're side hustling. Honestly, I bet you, everybody in this room, I asked you to put your hands up. If you've got a side hustle at the moment, a lot of you would be putting your hands up. And it's those then that you can then start to give air cover to, which kind of, then it's easier to get the buy-in, I think, because you can show some data, and data is always helpful in innovation, because rather than saying, I've had this great idea and I think it's going to do this for citizens, you can say, we've had this idea, it will do this for citizens, and here's some data to back that up. So I think that continual environment helps. It doesn't solve, helps.
It helps. Richard, you talked about a senior engineer who sponsored these educational boot camps, and you sort of said you can do a lot with a few people. You ended up with 10 people. What are you doing as a leader to help keep those people firing and going?
It's a bit like the Chinese Revolution. You know, let 1,000 flowers bloom, and then you need to cull some of them afterwards. I mean, innovation is a danger to itself sometimes. We need continuous improvement. We need to keep moving, but we need to be able to recognize at a leadership level when something isn't going to deliver and stop it. Again, because we have this programmatic structure, we often, once we've got something running, we feel the need to keep it going, regardless. Again, so there are various techniques about earned value management that can be applied to say, how is this program doing? You know, it's 15 months in. What has it done for us? What is it going to do for us? And I can't make innovation happen. I can lay the seeds to a certain extent, but it's down to us all as individuals. But what I can do is try and redivert money and time and resources and effort that's going off in the wrong direction.
Mm-hmm. And do you find pushback on that? Is that hard to do? Is it hard to defend that space for your teams?
Sometimes people are extremely grateful. It has to be said. Yes, I do, because projects and other parts of organisations are self-justifying, and you know, I'm as guilty as the next person. I've got my own special little corners that I like, and I want to, you know, I want to invest in, and I want to keep, and I have to come back to, is it delivering business value? I'm literally in the middle of exchanging emails, which is to cut off a program where I've invested a lot of time, resources, and effort myself, and it's just not going anywhere, or at least not at a pace where it's going to deliver the value that is needed. There's a certain amount of brutality, but those resources should be going elsewhere where they could be better used.
Leanne?
I was just going to say, it's also not just about stopping innovation, I don't think, and the ones that aren't going as hard as they can. Innovation's also, and I'm using that term because of this, innovation's also a choice, right? We're all working on products and services that are established, and you can always do more. You can always incrementally do more. And if you're choosing to invest in innovation, that's a choice you have to make that doesn't slow that other thing down, but so culturally, there's a challenge always between, we can't just focus on there's that balance constantly about making decisions that mean that the thing that you incrementally develop doesn't get extra to allow you to think about tomorrow. And I think those choices are also really hard, but really necessary.
Yeah. I mean, we sometimes talk about innovation as if it is in competition with all of the other things that we need to do, right? So
Yeah, maybe it is.
yeah, and it is, yeah. So we've got limited resources, we've got limited time, and we need to think about how we spend that wisely. But do you think that innovation should only and can only exist at the bleeding edge with the absolute new, or do you think it has a role to play in dealing with some of our legacy challenges? And I think, John, I'll come to you on that.
Yeah, so I think for me, one of the key things, so we've come from this huge program, which certainly when I arrived in HMCTS, it was everything everybody talked about. We didn't talk about operational management. You know, every meeting was about, well, how are we doing on reform? And then you get into operations. So changing that round, changing that culture to a place of, we're actually about keeping courts running, and we're actually about innovating. And we've developed a continuous improvement structures. We're now service board and product oriented. But to change that culture is really difficult, because you're not asking people to say, you know, come up with this really amazing, innovative thing. What you're saying is, what can you do on a small, incremental scale to move things forward? And that's not helped by the spending review, where you're asked for what are your big plans. I had a meeting with GDS last week where they said, you know, what amazing things you're doing in AI. I'm doing some amazing things in AI, but they're not that interesting. They are making us more efficient. And they are chipping away, but they're not, you know, it isn't robot judges, which is what everyone wants. You know, everyone wants something for the Times front page. And trying to get to that place of understanding that innovation should be just this gradual increment. I liken it a lot to your phone. You go to sleep, your phone updates 6 apps overnight, you don't even realise. We need to get like that in government, where things are just incrementally improving all the time.
Yeah.
I think the panel is recommending boring innovation. That's
right.
Maybe the headline you need to take away.
So staying there then, again, sometimes people think about innovation in terms of incubators, skunk works, labs. Do you think that model works? Do you think consolidating the need to innovate in a small group of people with innovation in their title, is that the right move? Christina?
At risk of disagreeing with anybody who might say the opposite, I really hate the idea of innovation ghettos. You know, like, the idea that innovation should be part of our business as usual, I think is really important. The moment we turn around and say, you guys, please focus on delivering our business today, and you, please figure out how we're going to completely make these lot feel unvaluable and go and work out the new and novel. Actually, we create these horrible tensions in our own organizations when fundamentally the whole shift of products and services has been that we are continually improving, right? We're continually seeing ability teams. So I am very, very against the idea of innovation ghettos, to the point where I hate the idea of future teams and skunk work, make it part of the day-to-day of how that team runs and continues to move, I think.
John?
So I absolutely agree, actually. One of the things we really learned from Reform was we started with requirements. We got some people from operations into a place in Croydon, I think it was, and they then went on and delivered everything. It was made worse by COVID because people weren't able to go out to courts. And what we've changed now is, rather than having innovation ghettos, is to have a constant feedback loop with people in courts, with people in tribunals, with our contact centres. I have my team now basing themselves, not in London, but in courts. I base myself in my local court. And by doing that, you are constantly getting that feedback, and you're constantly getting real innovation. And when people on the front line feel that they're able to properly have ideas and see them through and get involved, that makes a huge difference, rather than getting everyone in a room and saying, right, let's sort something out today, sort of thing.
I mostly agree. I don't think it's either or. I think there's a space where incubators, we work really closely with I.AI, and that helps us enormously. They help us push things, they help us test things. We help that, like it's a really lovely relationship. I don't think it's either or. I do agree that it shouldn't be innovations done somewhere else. That should be in everybody's role. But I absolutely think there's a place for the healthy tension that happens between, great, that magical unicorn, if anybody's, I don't really mean it's unicorns, but great, this magical thing that is never going to happen, with the reality of a day-to-day. And when you meet in the middle, there's something magic happens. There's something giddy there that happens. So I'm a fan of them, as long as there's capacity for, at team level, to also be developing, because they're different types of experts. So I don't want to be all the Waltons about it, but I think there's a space for both things to exist, and it needs to.
Great. And do you think, and actually I might ask the room here now, is innovation, and to be an innovator, is this a word that we feel comfortable with? If I was to ask you to raise your hand and go, do you think you're innovative? Would you ever describe yourself as an innovator? Would anybody be brave enough? We've got some. Okay. Maybe what? 10% of the room?
Yes.
Oh, I've got some more people. They're joining the party. That's good. So it's something we need to do, something we all want to make happen. That's clear because we've all come here today. But maybe it's not connecting to kind of the role that we can each play. So, Leanne, what are the skills that the best innovators have? What can we learn from them?
I don't know. I mean, I prefer expert than innovator, right? Because innovation just isn't about... I couldn't be prouder of Gov.uk Chat, but I'm also proud of the user research we're doing in a different way that makes that happen. I'm also proud of how we've re-platformed things. I'm proud of how we're thinking about our tooling, and do we have to build a thing? Is there a generation... We've replaced search in Gov.uk. Like, I'm proud of all the work we do. And I think maybe that word can be a bit like, I don't know, am I an innovator? I bet a lot of people that didn't put their hands up were like, I probably am, but I don't know. So I feel like it's the language, I think, is the challenge, versus all the experts that we know and that we work with, your 10 folks, and the people that have been on your journey with you all along the panel. If you say innovators, you can picture teams in your head. You just can picture your teams in your head because you know they're doing it. So I don't know whether we're just scared of the word.
Yeah. Do you think it's a mindset?
I don't know. I think we're doing it. So I don't know whether the word needs some PR or something. You should PR the word a bit. I don't know. It's like transformation itself. That's a word that's also like, are we transforming? Yes, every single day we turn up and we are transforming. We're shifting channels, all of that. But if you had said it, if it's Transformers, which I'm trying to coin, by the way, we're all Transformers, people would also be like, I don't know, am I? So I think, anyway, we need to do some PR.
So we need to own it.
We need to own it.
We need to own it a bit more. Okay, I think we'll have one more question to the panel, and then I'll open it up to the floor. And I'm going to end on AI. I'm going to have to, aren't I?
We have to.
AI bingo.
They count.
So it's been a topic of conversation, not just in this panel, but throughout the conference. we've heard from you, Leanne, about what's going on in gov.uk chat. As digital leaders, to what extent do you think AI will change the way tech is used to drive change? And is the public sector ready to embrace it? John.
So yeah, I think AI will have a huge effect, but probably not necessarily in the way that people are thinking. We have judges who have to read 7,000 pages before a case. Now, there is no reason that AI fairly quickly can really summarise what the key bits are and compare that with the sentencing guidelines or the legal areas that they need to look at. I think AI will hugely make us more efficient. I think what I would like us to do less of is everybody's jumped straight into the AI bandwagon and have developed loads of things. I've seen loads of ChatGPT type things developed at sort of department level. Actually, the AI bubble is moving so fast that as soon as we've developed them, something else has happened. And we need to harness those suppliers rather than thinking we're going to be at the cutting edge of AI, because we're not. We can really use AI and make it our success, but to think we're going to attract the best AI developers, I think is incorrect.
Thanks. Richard?
I have a particular perspective on this, which might be to do with my history. So 3 decades ago, I worked on artificial intelligence with Edinburgh University, where we were working on inferencing engines. And that was, well, I don't know, somewhere between the first and the second wave. So I have been around the level of enthusiasm that this can generate, and sometimes the requisite level of disappointment that might result when we think it solves everything for us. Even if it was capable of delivering artificial intelligence equivalent or better than a human, it has all the potential failings that we as humans have. So if you're going to look for a characteristic, to me the characteristic of AI that is worth holding on to is the concept we're going to be doing things a lot faster. So we're going to be automating decision making. That's the area that I expect to be most advantageous, but also ethically most challenging, whole different branch of area. So the bit that moves beyond putting a Power BI dashboard in front of a whole set of people and instead says, I've taken this decision on your behalf. I've done this for you. I've cut the necessity of staring at these things out of the loop. That is going to be a big change in my area. For example, forecasting of where inventory has to be in the world in order to supply our armed forces. Literally, should it be sited in Africa, or should these products be held in Europe, and at what time of the year they should be there? A whole level of complexity that we couldn't manage as human beings. But it's not going to have an impact everywhere in perhaps the pervasive sense that people are talking about at the moment. So speed and automation, yes. General intelligence,
The jury's out. Leanne, you excited?
I'm super excited. I'm super excited about it, but I also look. There's loads of spaces where government in the UK, by its nature, is a little bit further behind in a peloton of technology that's happening, and I think that I'm excited about. I agree that there's quite a lot of hyperbole, but I'm excited about. I was lucky enough to see government departmental returns on what they were thinking of doing, the applications they were thinking of in department with AI, right? And a lot of them weren't jazz hands glamorous, but a lot of them were heavy lifting. How cool is that? So I am very excited about it. I do think that we are going to see some great gains using it. I like the meme that is like, I'd rather do the washing up than make the poetry. I think that's okay. Like, I think that's probably going to be largely our approach. But no, I'm excited about it generally.
And Christina, a last word from you. And you can tell us, right, because you're out of government now. Are we ready? Are we going to embrace this, or are we going to miss our chance?
No, I definitely think so. So I was laughing to myself because I remember having an almost identical question in 2013, which was, is digital going to revolutionize government? And I remember thinking, well, digital will help us deliver what we have to deliver to our citizens so much better, not because digital is the outcome, but because actually it allows us to do things faster, move our people up the value chain, etc. And I'm as excited about AI because AI is honestly allowing us to do exactly that. You know, it's allowing us to engage with our citizens in a way that our citizens want to be able to ask a question. I mean, how many people are currently asking ChatGPT about their symptoms right now? You know, it's a really important thing about how we move forward. So I am incredibly excited about AI. I actually think government, more so than a lot of other sectors, has much more ability to really embrace it. I think, you know, we talk about government like it's behind. Government's not behind. We were #1 in the world for 5 years when it came to digital at one point. You know, we are brilliant when it comes to using the outside world or using, you know, our UK experts to be able to come in and deliver really innovative things for the UK. So I'm very excited. And yes, I think government is absolutely placed and probably one of the best placed.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, panel. I'm going to broaden this out now and take some questions from the floor. So if you've got a burning question to put to one of our panelists, please raise your hand. We've got some mics. I will come to you first.
Hi there. Thanks very much. It's been absolutely fascinating. My name's Mark. I'm frontline admin in the probation service in the north. My reflection is that I see so much innovation. Most of the innovation I see is when I come to work in the morning, a new security patch has come onto the system, and we have to have a workaround to try and solve the problem that we now can't do using an IT method. And this happens like weekly. So my reflection is, all of this conversation's been really exciting, but when I go back into the office tomorrow morning and have to get out my pad to try and work out how our probation staff can manage their appointments for the day, where's the join between those two?
John?
Don't want to take that as MOJ piece. We were in the same place in HMCTS for a long time. You'd come in on a Monday morning, I'd go into Milton Keynes Court, and you'd almost hear the screams from next door as the latest update had gone out. We have to get to a place where we are putting stable systems out and not putting workarounds out. We got into a place with reform where we were just chasing the functionality all the time, and it's back to the pack thing. We had to deliver X, Y, Z. We changed that and said, actually, how does this work for users? And again, by going out to users and sitting with them, you could see that something that we thought might not be that bigger impact was huge. And those sorts of things in probation are the same. I'd come back to the governance issue. I really think that's our biggest challenge here. I'm kind of close to that probation argument. And everybody kind of knows that the probation systems are not probably fit for purpose. And yet we can't do anything about it. It's just caught in the sludge of governance. And we really have to do things about that. We have to do it at a local level. So where I'm looking at low code, for instance, how do I make sure that we change our local governance so that we can do that without it being strategic, but also at a higher level. You know, I went for an extension of 3 months for a member of staff recently. That went through 7 or 8 decision levels. That's the sort of thing that's killing us, and it's the sort of thing that's stopping us going, yeah, that system's not good enough. Let's fix it.
Thanks, John. Christina, did you want to come in on this one?
I do. It's an overused term, but we really do need to just bring user-centered design into every single part of our work, right? You know, in some cases, we still reserve it for the new and the shiny and what's going to be seen outside. But actually, the whole point of true end-to-end service delivery is, why is security not, you know, designed around the user? Why are we not thinking about the impact it's going to have on people? And if you can take that user-centered design across the entire end-to-end of any service, you're going to end up without that situation where, you know, people are banging their heads.
Leanne, any reflections from you as someone who's thinking about our citizen end users, but also products and platforms for civil servant users too?
Sort of just agreeing with the panel. Yes, to think about user-centered design, but you're always going to be in the what's the biggest priority. So I think just chipping away, not ideal, but chipping away at the known problems as well is probably more likely than we need to spend £1 billion revolutionising that thing. So I think, yeah, not super helpful, but I think that's where you're going to find incremental development.
Nice, thank you. Another question. There was someone in the front here, please.
Hi, I'm Simon. I work for CGI. I just wondered, how do you think you can encourage to pair our government clients and government organisations for this automation and AI future? Seems a lot of reticence. And also, do you think there's a place for citizen developers? We talk about scale. There's a lot of people that talk about scale and democratization. So power platforms and maybe dips of AI to scale it quicker. Do you think giving people the tools to do it at the coalface would help?
I mean, I'm pretty excited about citizen developers. I don't know how a lot of people in the organisation would be. I like the input and the ideas that you can generate externally. I would think about the application of it, but
What are the guardrails required?
yeah, I think, yeah, it's definitely something to think about. I think I'd rather think about internships, programs like that, programs where you can get people who don't necessarily have the experience, give them broad experience, and work that way. Possibly a bit easier to operationally support than
I just worry about, in the past we had macros, and they weren't very looked after. That was essentially citizen development. So how do we do it properly in the future? Access databases are another one. Yeah, how can we do it properly in the future? How can we learn from those mistakes from the past with all this technology that we could give to people to accelerate this digital transformation?
I think Richard and John are going to have a fight
Yeah,
as to who can
we're
answer this
fighting
one.
it out.
Wait,
You go.
Richard.
I don't want system developers, but I want system exploiters. And actually, the skill set's somewhat overlapping. I don't want people writing code. I want people close to the business problem, trying to interpret the business problem with the tooling. I want people to use Excel better, would you believe? You know, we've got really powerful things sitting on our desktops that we don't know how to use. I want everybody to have Copilot. I mean, genuinely, I cannot think of the ways in which we could use it, but I know I'll be told as soon as I deliver it to somebody. But development, no, I don't think I want to go there.
John?
I agree with you. I think this does touch a bit on the low-code piece there that I mentioned. I constantly am in a sort of dilemma of, is low-code the new access database? And I think the thing is, it's much more powerful, and therefore we need to, I'm going to talk about introducing governance now, which is very anti-me, but we need to work out how our own governance structures allow some experimentation in low-code, but that we know what's going on. I think it's quite good that people have the ability to experiment, but we need to work out our structures where we know that's happening, and where it gets to a certain point, we can say, right, okay, we are going to strategize that, we are going to industrialize it and make it scalable.
Yeah.
But actually, there's a lot of people out there who have great ideas and are able to do this stuff now. We need to make our whole staff much more digitally capable. That's a big problem in HMCTS. But we should be hiring people who, right from the start, know how to use Excel. You know, everyone coming into our workforce should really know all these things. And we're not really concentrating on that. Once you concentrate on that, then you've got to give them more ability to do stuff, I think.
Okay. I think we've got time for one more question at the front.
Hello? Yes, I'm Sarah. I'm from HMRC. What I wanted to know was how you create the culture for innovation. You know, I was one of the people that put my hands up about being an innovator, and I am. I've done all sorts of different things. I'm also an expert in philosophy. And what I wanted to know was, how do you create the culture for ideas? Because my sense is that the civil service isn't quite there yet.
Christina?
I'll give you an example if you want. I'm reading a book at the moment about Vienna at the turn of the 20th century. It was the most innovative place in the whole of Europe, and it was because of diversity. It had Freud, Wittgenstein, loads of scientists, loads of mathematicians, and it was the most diverse city in the whole of Europe.
Thanks, Sarah. Great question. Right, we are almost out of time, so I'm going to come to each of our panelists in turn, and we're going to give what's one magic ingredient for a culture of innovation. So, Christina, we'll start with you.
Genuine need to believe that nobody is as smart as everybody together. Like, we have to allow for a space for stupid questions, stupid ideas, and just continually working out loud and narrating. It's really hard when we've got the daily fail test constantly on our back door, but actually just allowing people to be able to ask questions and getting senior leadership to ask sometimes what will look like a stupid question in order to make the space safe for everyone else is actually the biggest thing in the mindset for me.
John?
Listen to the users. I know it's a bit of a boring old thing, but we're still not doing it well enough. Get the feedback loops for users. But also don't limit users to being citizens in our case. You know, my users are my 15,000 court staff, legal professionals, judges, etc. All of those are users. Listen to them.
Richard?
Rewards. I've got a fairly minuscule budget for rewards, but it can be used to recognise good practice, and also recognition can just be publicising things. Communications and recognition, to me, is at the heart of actually driving this. Oh, and data. Did I mention data?
Leanne?
All of the above, so all of that, plus not doing it in secret.
Okay.
We're experts in a massive amount of things, but not everything. So not doing it in secret and getting people involved early.
There we go. So there you have it, folks. You've got the ingredients for how you make innovation happen. I want to say a big thank you to our panelists. I want to say a big thank you to all of you. Do stay around. I think we've got, if we flip the screen, it's got some more fantastic sessions on this stage coming up. But thank you so much for your time and enjoy. Thanks, panel.
Thank you, everyone.